Oh, yeah, I'm up. Okay, good evening. I'm happy and honored to host tonight's webinar. Okay, my name is Ikang. I'm from the School of Media Arts and Design in the field of industrial design. Okay, the title for tonight is Introduction to Industrial Design, Bringing Products from Concept to Reality. I guess before I'm going to introduce the speaker tonight, I probably have to introduce quickly what is industrial design. I know many of you out there are unaware of what is industrial design. Well, this includes my family members who might still be wondering what I do for a living in the past 20 years. Okay. Well, the short form for industrial design is ID, but no, we are not talking about interior designer here. Okay. Well, even though industrial designer do works with interior designer, especially in the furniture design, lighting design, to name a few, but we are not interior designers. And another common mistake is that some people likes to link us with industrial engineers. Yeah, but industrial designer is different from industrial engineers. Yeah, we can understand a little bit of design for assembly, but we are not industrial engineer. So the question is, what do we do? Okay, I have a fun facts over here. Every human being is exposed to more than 70 products daily. To name a few, my headset, glasses, your handphone, mouse, your car, uh, all the appliances on the kitchen. These are all designed by industrial designers. Okay. The term industrial design, I think it started during the first industrial revolution. Okay, so where are we now? We are at the fourth industrial revolution, right? Okay, so let me bring you back a little bit to the industrial design history. Now, okay, I know, okay, this is a Friday night, even though you are very relaxed, I'm not going to make you go to sleep by telling you the history lesson, just a little bit. Okay, now, before the industrial revolutions, products were made by artisans, individuals. Okay, they are like carpenters, metalsmith, but they are not mass produced. Okay, but with the introduction of steam engine, the machine started to produce products. And this is where the industrial designer was born. In the very beginning, the industrial designer was created to design for the machine. But that was a long time ago now. Today, we are not only designing for the machines, we are designing for the human. We are creating experiences. Okay? So until now, it's still quite difficult sometimes for me to explain my work. And the other day, I was thinking to myself, how should I call myself, an industrial designer? So I found this word. I'm kind of like a fixer in a good way, okay? If you check dictionary, fixer is kind of like a negative word, but I'm kind of like a good fixer. Because my work, I always work with, I think, three very important parties. For example, the human, the end user, or the buyer. This is one of the parties that I will have to study. This is industrial designer trained to do the best. Okay, we have to observe the user. We have to understand the user, what they like, what they dislike, how do they actually use the product. And with that, we carry the information and then we have to go to another department, which is the manufacturing area. Okay, we have to understand how this product is going to be made. What are the material constraints? What are the tooling design constraints? What are the processing constraints? And then we get all this information, and then we still have to work with another person, which is an important part of the business, the marketing side. Okay, so we kind of like the bridge to bring all these three very important elements together. When from there we create a product. Okay, now before I'm going to bring in the speakers, let's take a look at some of the industrial design work that done by our students. Okay, let's just watch a short clips. All right, thank you very much. Fantastic. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to our guest speaker tonight. Okay, he is Mr. Ang Tee Chian, the co-founder of Expedio Design. Let's welcome Mr. Ang. Yo, how are you,
Hi,
man?
hi, Kang. Hi, how are you?
Good. Are you at your studio, right?
Yes, I'm still at my studio here in Malaysia in PJ. Yes,
Okay,
we've got it set up all ready for what we are doing today.
okay. I like your stormtrooper there.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay, so would you like to jump straight into it? Because I actually saw a sneak peek of your slide presentation. I'm kind of like very excited about it. Would you like to jump straight into it and introduce to us about your work and industrial design?
No problem. Thanks for the introduction just now. I saw the works of the APU students and very proud to say that some of the works look amazing. So good job to the students there. And thanks for the intro on industrial design. I guess all of us have so much different definition of industrial design, and yours is a really good definition of how it came from the industrial revolution. So I'm just going to jump straight into the slides so that we won't bore everyone with all the fine details. So looking at the products out here, or right in my slide, that famous Apple iPhone that you're using, guess what? That's designed by a famous industrial designer, probably the most notable or most famous one during this century, which is Johnson Ive. That Dyson fan that sells for quite a high value and high amount right now, that's also done by a designer. In this sense, he didn't really graduate from industrial design, but he did studied in design school by Sir James Dyson. And that Nike watch, which probably some of you remember from maybe about 5-10 years ago, full molded rubber body, that was designed by an industrial designer, famous guy called Carl Liu. So these are all world famous industrial designers. They are very, very notable ones. But I think this one is more common that everyone would know. Of course, I'm coming from Malaysia, so I've got to bring it back to where we are here. Just to tell you, the Nando's lighting that you always go, and you might realize that going to a Nando's, you see different lighting. That's done by our Malaysian industrial designer, Stephanie Ng, who graduated from Australia. The HP printer that you are using at home, also done by a Malaysian industrial designer, JJ Ismail from Aesthetic. One of another notable one would be the Proton car. This one is the Gen 2, designed also by a Malaysian designer called Damien Chia. So as you can see, Ikang was very right. Things that we use every day, things that sometimes we take for granted, all these are done by designers, and a lot of them are usually industrial designers. Who we are Expedio Design. We are a multidisciplinary team consisting of industrial designers, mechanical engineers, programmers, the whole works to make a product start from idea all the way to mass commercialization. And we've worked with various brands from small ones all the way to large multinationals. We have been involved very much with the community, giving education, giving talks, even involved a lot with internships, training students or, potential graduates all up to be world-class designers. We design a range of products ranging from, small startup entrepreneurs all the way to multinationals. We have dabbled in consumer electronics, access control, hydroponics, exercise equipment, you name it, we've probably had some touch in quite a lot of field. But that's all an introduction to industrial design, and I think the main reason we are here today is to tell you or to explain to you what industrial design is. The easiest way I think that we'll do that is that we'll bring you through 4 case studies. And why the case study? This way you can actually see, how industrial design process takes place, what takes place in designing a product, what takes place in trying to build that product all the way to something that's real, something that really can be touched and used by humans. The first case study would be Fire Trainer. So this actually came from, I would say, I'll call him a very good entrepreneur. He had an idea. And at that time, a lot of the gym equipment, especially the suspended, so his main target was the suspended gym equipment. And a lot of these suspension trainers were made out of cloth. They usually actually, the cloth actually rubbed against rubbed against each other, and it started to fray. And there's a lot of problems when you use it for maybe a year or so, and you get cloth that's rubbing and it's friction and it'll break off. So he had this idea of putting in a bearing and a pulley wheel, make everything smoother. And then the other thing with all this suspension training equipment was that it only is designed or was meant for people who had really good core stability or core strength, but it didn't cater for the novice or the one who wanted to go more. So he came to us with really a sketch on a paper, and he highlighted, I still remember, he highlighted on A4 paper a triangle, and he showed the three main components of exercise, which was diet, consistency, and strength. And of course, he knew what he wanted to do. And when he conveyed it to us, he wanted to, design a product. There was a suspension trainer that could do all this. And, of course, first thing you do as an industrial design, you go into sketching. You sketch out thumbnails. That's a very important or integral part of what we do. And then we start thinking more of design language. So what's a design language? That's a very important part of the process. So designing something that's just beautiful is probably easier that anyone can probably do right now. But designing something that's meaningful and has a language and tries to accentuate that language that you are trying to tell people, that's a different skill altogether. So when we design here in Expedio, we always start with a language. Like, what are you trying to tell? Like an iPhone, when people hold it, what do people feel when they see it? So, this is what you try to do. And, we had this language that we wanted to do, which was to take the famous race car from Australia called the Atom, and where you actually use and see the engineering marvel, where you actually have structure, but you can still see the internal mechanical and all the engines and all the components. So we took that whole language and idea and put that into a real design. And from sketch, we actually move to CAD, which is computer-aided design, where we actually model it on a computer and render it. And in this process, we usually, of course, have to give customers, or in that sense, our prospects, a few design choices to choose from. Usually we have about 3 or 5 design concepts, and in this case, we narrowed it down to these 2. And how that comes about is, of course, both of it, as you can see, are very much true to the language of like what we wanted to do, which was an atom car. And that considers, of course, the design has to consider the pulley wheel, where the strap sits and moves, and all the locking mechanisms that the engineering are putting in. And of course, we go more and beyond that if you want to do rebranding, you can actually change faceplates and change color, and get it rebranded for maybe another or a potential or someone who wanted to put their brand on it. But industrial designers don't stop there. I've talked to you about sketching. I've talked to you about computer-aided design and trying to do a rendering like that. When we move into manufacturing, it goes more than that. And we sometimes find ourselves doing in things like textile design. So how does the strap get sewn on it? What sort of textile or what sort of webbing do you use? How thick is this webbing? And all these are considerations of the industrial designers when they start doing this and when they start to move into manufacturing. There's even the use or the user experience. As you can see in this video right here, in this video, you can see that how when someone tries to unlock and releases that latch there, all right, they don't actually get to see what happens in that casing, because that casing there is actually covered. So it's actually covered, and that lock pin is not seen. But how do we do that? We have an aligning line where you have to align 2 lines together, and when you get the 2 lines aligned together, you drop the pin in, and it'll drop exactly right in the middle, sweet spot right in the middle, right there. So these are things that industry designers have to do, and it's not of course it takes a whole team with the engineers and everything to make it possible, but all this human factor and human approach all comes under the field of industrial design. When we move into manufacturing, how the stitching splits apart, and how we come to details of stitching. are also consideration of industrial designers. We even go as much as to, what sort of cord or what sort of webbing makes it good or makes it correct, so that the pin that drops through doesn't cause fraying. As you can see here, this was one of our earlier prototypes. When the pin kept going through that slot there, it would hit the edge of the webbing. And that's where the designers come up with ingenious solutions, trying to make something that would solve problems like that. Besides designing a product, everything a designer do includes the whole life process. So that includes even the packaging. So we as industrial designers sometimes have to take care of things like packaging, have concept designs for it, even up to a transport box, and that's something that gets shipped to consumers, and and that has to be considered as well. So as you can see in these few slides, in this first example, the range of what an industrial designer do is really quite wide. We do everything from sketching, computer-aided design drawing, packaging design, as you can see, even graphics. Another case study would be going on from Fire Trainer. So Fire Trainer actually evolved, and the founder actually started doing boutique gyms. And again, you think that, oh, okay, it's a gym, it's a construction thing. So why would a designer be involved? But that's where designer have that edge, and in that sense, that sort of thinking and design thinking, to try and recreate things that are more functional. At that time, functional training rigs were just a bunch of metal studs or a bunch of metal pillars put together. But you don't consider things like storage. You don't consider things like where to put your equipment. So that's where we started thinking, what if we could integrate storage into a modular racking system that could fit gym 1, gym 2, gym 3, gym 4, any gym. And when our customers started to expand the gym, they can just order back the same sort of pillars and the same sort of equipment, but in different configurations for different gyms. And that's how Fire Trainer or the Fire Rig was born. And again, we went through concepts, we went through wall hanging ones, but in the end, we found out that the best design or the best approach was one that actually had storage in between, and had that possibility of having storage, so that if you are starting a gym now and you need a training rig, you don't actually need to go and buy a dumbbell rack. Your dumbbell rack is actually integrated with your fire training or your fire rig in that sense. And this is how industrial designer thinks and try to make designs and applications much easier, much simpler, and much more functional. The second case study that I'd like to bring you through is what we call the timer dripper. So this is actually a coffee dripper, and the traditional coffee dripper, of course, when you pour, it goes through a small hole, and the coffee drips, and there's no adjustment of time. So a prospect came to us and wanted to do something where you can actually have a timer, and it's something like that. As the timer approaches, it actually closes the valve, and basically, that's it. So for us, when we started to approach this project, this is another different aspect. This is a bit of what we call an art aspect of industrial design. And when we say an art aspect, this targets, or we wanted to make this thing a bit more sculptural, a bit more like a very minimalist, a bit like a Japanese sort of design, maybe made out of clay. But of course, we know that it's not going to be made out of clay, because it has to be easily clean. So we decided to make it out of plastic. But we wanted sort of that appeal and that sort of outlook. And so again, same thing, we embark on our design processes. And we had a lot of different concepts. And as I can show you here, we had concepts that were asymmetrical, off-center. And in the end, we settled for a concept that was very, very balanced. It had two inverted conical, one mirrored on each other, to create this very nice elliptical sort of wave in the middle. And if we made it out of plastic, we knew that it could be very transparent, and that gives a really nice feel to it. And we had our timer mechanism at the bottom. I won't stress in the slides how much how much engineering plays a part in all our part of design, but I do have to tell you, there are a lot of the designs that work out there. A lot of it has a very important engineering component. But because today what I'm trying to introduce you is more to industrial design, I'll leave engineering to another time when when we talk about engineering component and mechanisms. As you can see with the slide, things proceed. So we design. Why do we design? Things that have two inverted cones together. That's because of grip. That's human factor. We have to consider things like that. And when we take this and when we take this on and we take this further into the process, we do a lot of things like 3D prints, renders, test pieces. We try them out. We see if it's too big, too fat, too small. And all these are roles and responsibilities of an industrial designer. In the end, of course, after all the 3D printing is done, we make a final prototype out of different materials, and in this case, it's a clear polycarbonate piece, clear polycarbonate piece, and along with a mechanism right at the bottom. So industrial design, for me, Expedio has been around for 10 years. It has evolved from just aesthetic design to much more than that. Industrial designers nowadays play a role in affecting, for me, impacting the future community, people who are in the community. And I would like to touch on these last two projects, which I think is it's a very different aspect of industrial design, or very different aspect of traditional industrial design, where it's just about aesthetic. And this part of the industrial design, or this part of the case study, shows you what an industrial designer can do to impact community through experiences. This is a project called Footbraille. Our customer, or an agency, came to us saying that they wanted to help blind people watch football, in that sense, through haptic touch technology. They came to us with a sketch like that, as you can see what I'm showing here. And the idea was, of course, to use something like braille dots, where the braille dots would rise, and the blind person can actually feel the ball movement. It is a really, really solid and good idea. But then, as designers, we have to think what's possible and what's not. A very small dot that has to be moved up and down would require hundreds, thousands of motors, and that would not be possible. So we started thinking, how would it be possible to do something like that? And we started to use things that were already available, and things that were available in the market, and repurpose them for this particular use. And that is using what we call a G-code system, or in that sense, machining code that is being used in machining or CNC machining. We translated that to an XY axis and started working on what we call the Footbraille. We had concepts again, and this is looking at the ID portion, or the aesthetic portion. And why do we start with that always? That actually is the pulling thing. When someone sees something just on their first look, that's the thing that will attract them. But as I say, industrial designers are not only concentrating on the aesthetic portion. So again, we have three concepts that we show customers. Things with different outlook. A fin-like design inspired by our national stadium here in Malaysia. A more tech-based one, that looks a bit like a consumer electronic piece today. But of course, the final design that was chosen from all our discussions and an application is something that looks like our national stadium, has that sort of look and feel and that sort of language where we try to copy or mimic that fin-like design and that smooth transition of curve on the side. And from then on, we also have another team, or another design team, actually working on how do you work and make sure that a blind person can actually put their hands on and actually touch and feel the ball. And we started then with a cloth, and with a lot of feedback and a lot of discussion with some of the blind football players in Malaysia, we decided that a cloth would be the best choice, because we then can sew different material on it. We can have lines that can tell marking. And so if you can imagine you're blind, you don't know where the ball is on the field, right? And your only way to see is through touch. And that can be done really clearly if we had it on a cloth. And then we also have different material on the cloth, so that as it entered the penalty area of it, or even if when it went into the goal, you know straight away from your touch that you're actually touching a different type of surface and different type of texture. And all this could not have been done without the input and the that sort of design aspect from what the designer can do. The final product was, of course, great. We even actually managed to do a film for it. I would play that film, and you can take a look at what happened or what transpired in that film.
So, Coach, I'm assuming they enjoy watching football also.
Oh, yes.
And how do they do that?
We do take them to the stadiums.
Okay.
So isn't it so exciting to see a person with a disability cheering as a Malaysian with other Malaysians because they have the right to be there.
Di Malaysia yang memang betul-betul korang nak tengok sini. Di Malaysia sejarah lah, ikut sejarah kan. Paling legend lah sejarah football Malaysia ni untuk kelaikan Olimpik tu. Ramai dulu Argugam, Sis, adik-adik Bakri ini, Saleh Hassan Zani, dan paling tak dapat dilupakan Wira Sabah dan Wira Malaysia, James Wong.
In order for Azrael, Azwan and Arif to experience that 1980 historic match, we needed to develop a device that would help them navigate the position of the ball for the entire 90 minutes of gameplay. After months of research and development, we produced the world's first prototype. We called it Foot Braille.
What it is actually there's a small mechanical ball that's actually moving, telling you where the ball position is.
It's great. Are you excited?
Oh, yes, I am. I can't wait to try this out with my boys.
Yep.
Yeah, we should. I'm excited.
It's been quite a journey, an adventure, bringing this technology to life. Today is the official test run for the Foot Braille.
Jom, kita pergi tengok something very interesting hari ini. Being visually impaired, memang ini yang kita nanti-nantikan. You know, Cik Anwar?
Sabar.
Let's go, come. I get you seated. Pernah dengar tak game tu? Malaysia lawan Korea Selatan kan?
Yeah, it's all experiences. So, Coach, shall we?
Let's sit down here.
Yep.
Okay, game dah mula. Bola di
The thing that we saw today,
kawasan
real
Korea.
emotion, how football fans experience the game.
Gol ataupun tidak. Oh, okay. Referee sudah memberikan gol. Itulah gol pertama Malaysia. When I started off the first half with them, I think that was an amazing moment in time. You know, blind person getting to actually feel the game in 1980. Pemain Korea menjaringkan gol penyamaan. That is the beauty about the Foot Braille. It's sync. You know, they are actually reading.
Dengan tenang melepaskan satu sepakan lerik ke sebelah kanan keeper Korea tu, dan itulah gol kemenangan Malaysia.
They know how the goal was scored instead of James Wong jaring satu biji bola. Now that is amazing. I told you they were not even born in 1980. Now they know the technicalities involved in the build up to the second goal.
We're talking about a match that happened 39 years ago. 39 years ago. So this is not something that we're live.
After this, no more share screen.
Us watching the match, commented the match. I think we all really felt it. This is a match that we all have a vested interest in.
Nama saya James Wong.
Really?
Kejut
Yang menjaring gol.
Thank you.
Never experienced this in my whole life, and I never dreamt I would experience this. But this is like a real dream for flying, watch football. I mean, I don't think I will ever dream this.
With footprint, they are a Malaysian spectator. They are not a blind spectator.
We created something that allows them to be a part of that patriotic feeling. Patriotism is their imagination.
So as you can see there, as a designer, we have a chance to make an impact to people and to community. I think we were very happy and we were very proud of that project and sort of what it can do to, you know, the blind people who have always only listened to their EPL or their favorite matches. And now we can actually try and take that to something where they can actually try and watch it through touch and feel. And we were very happy that DG gave us that chance, and we thank them for giving us that chance, and for Mojo Film for making that film. And moving on, I would say the next slide or the last slide would be something similar as I said just now on how design actually transpired, or you know, things that can do to impact community. So this is another design project that actually takes that, you know, just not just aesthetic feel and make it much more where it's more experience based. So we had a project where Honda wanted to create a shopping cart where they bring all the Honda sensing technology into a shopping cart where actually normal people like me and you can actually push a cart around and understand the key technologies in a real car. And why they do that? They won't let you crash a car at, you know, 80 km/h, or they won't let you try a car and, you know, let you do lane departure warnings, because that's just too dangerous. But then they had a problem of trying to tell that idea or trying to explain that idea to people. And that's where this project came about. When they first came to us, they told us we want to do this card, and you know, we don't have all the sensors. We can't take the sensors from the car and put it in a cart. So what can you guys do? So again, you know, besides the aesthetic portion, we had to come up with a lot of engineering, a lot of technology, a lot of sensors. That's why, you know, in Expedio we have a team that have a very wide experience with different things. And designers can't just say like, I'm only good in sketching, you know, I'm only good in this. A designer is someone who's really multidisciplinary. They have to know about technology. And of course we have programmers and we have engineering guys here in office, and that's who we actually bounce ideas off. And that's how the Honda Sensing Trolley came about. You know, we start off always with sketches. You know, we start off with key or important points like, what are you trying to do? You know, the frontal collision, the side collision, you know, the lane departure warnings and things like that. And then we start going into design. And again, like just now, which I showed, you know, we start with 3D modeling. We start with doing this. And then we start going into production. You know, for this, when we go into production, we always look at how is it feasible? How can we do this the best? You know, how can we do this with a sturdy frame, you know, so that when people push it around, it won't feel flimsy. And that's all these are considerations that designers have to take. We've built two carts, or two different versions of the cart. One that was used for filming, and one that was actually used in KL International Motor Show, where actually normal or people coming in every day can push it around and actually understand the key technologies. As you can see here with the sketch, you know, the sketch is always a very important tool of a designer. It starts off the whole idea. And, you know, after this sketch, engineering comes in, programmers come in, put in the sensor. But it all starts from this very, very primitive, or you can say, you know, this most basic form of design. And from a sketch, again, why do we sketch it in this way? You know, we take elements of a Honda car currently, and we try to put those elements into the trolley. You know, we try and put lighting, we try and put the lines, we try and put, you know, that white, black, you know, sort of contrasting things. And we try to put all these and make that trolley look futuristic, but still maintain the identity of Honda. And throughout that, we also again look at human factors, things like how the grip is, where are the sensors, where is it going to light up when you do a lane departure warning, and that all these were considerations of how and what we do when we try to build a cart. The final design, as you can see, of course, mimics very much a car. We had that front grille, we had that front design, we had all this that really resemble a Honda car. And this trolley, of course, looks good in CAD, right? Looks good on computer rendering. But then it's now time to build it. And that's where, when we start building it, it's time to work with the engineering, with all the key person that we have in our company to bring this project to life. We even go as far as choosing the emblem and doing the correct placement for the emblem. We decided to move it from, or to wrap it from a real shopping trolley or shopping cart. The reason for that is because a shopping cart is sturdy, strong. We don't have to redo the frame. But, we decided to do that because, this is probably the most economical approach and also the safest approach for people when they use it. Along the way, of course, the designers were involved in how the covers fitted in, how the sensing works, and, testing it with it many times in office, in front of our prospects, in front of our customers and things like that. And of course, we brought it to KL International Motor Show. And I would just like to show you a short video of how people can experience it and how design actually played that part to help people experience a Honda sensing feature in a shopping cart.
Here, we are going to showcase to you 4 of them, and they are the lane departure warning, frontal collision warning, collision mitigation braking system, and low speed follow, so that you can experience for yourself our Honda sensing technology.
Honda sensing, the technology applies on the cart, so it's easier for me to understand. Yeah, it makes me feel safe.
The vibration is strong, so it can give me a head up, so I know that I'm out of the lane. It's something very new to me and feel quite good.
Bila memandu, kadang-kadang bila ada satu objek kat depan, tiba-tiba emergency brake, luar kawalan kita. Tetapi kereta tu sendiri dah ada sensor dia sendiri, jadi dia selamatlah.
So as you can see with that, that's how design play a part in bringing that experience to people, and having that ability to feel and to understand technology. That's something that's not so, in that sense, that's something that's moving forward, and in what design could be in the future, and it's not just purely aesthetics. So with that, I sort of end the whole slide or what we have here today. I would move into the Q&A session soon, but I think what's important today that I would like to say is that design plays a very important part in all our lives. We sometimes take that for granted. That cup that I keep drinking from today, that's probably designed by a designer. This an IKEA cup, by the way. So there are a lot of designers in IKEA. So everything in what we use in our lives were designed by a designer, and most of them are actually industrial designers or study that field of design. And I hope that what I've done today is to at least give you an overview of what industrial design is and what possibilities can an industrial designer bring to human, to community, to the world. And thank you. I'll move on to the Q&A session now.
Well, thank you very much, Tee Chian, for sharing.
Thank you.
I only got this thing to say. It's kind of like I want to say thank you to you that you really do justice okay, out there to explain about the work that I do. When I look at it, right, I mean, I think back about 20 years ago, I used to be, I'm still very prideful about the things I do. I'm very proud about the things I do, because I kind of like say to people, I say, hey, we are kind of like can change culture. If just imagine today I design a chair with one stand for you to sit, probably you'll be sitting in a chair with a one stand. It's kind of like, of course, I'm not going to design something like that. But what I'm trying to say is that sometimes people see us like we are an inventor, but we are not actually an inventor, isn't it? It's because the process that we use to solve problems along the way, we created new products, right? So what do you say to that?
So I think that's true. So I think what the designer does, I mean, like as you say just now, along the way, right? What a designer can do is that, in our lives as designers, and what that ability that we have, we tend to create new products and new possibilities, and that's really key to what is in our studies or in our practice, and that's basically what we can do.
Yeah, I think looking at the scope of things that we do, I think it's sometimes not easy to tell people what we do, right? I mean, we know what we are actually doing, but we involve a lot of departments. Maybe I can quickly share a slides here that I want to kind of like summarize what I just mentioned. Okay, all right. When I mentioned saying that I'm kind of like a fixer, you see, so these are the people that we are actually talking to whenever we go into a project. Now, depending on the projects that you are going into, sometimes we only deal with the mechanical people, but sometimes we also have to deal with electrical and electronic engineers. And of late, we deal with a lot of software designers, because we are moving from tangible products to intangible. So you can see that in the middle, right, it's actually the end user, and we are kind of like the bridge to these people. And this is where I feel I'm very proud of my work, because it kind of like make me know, like, like I know a lot of things, because you need to know a lot of things. Okay. Yeah. You have anything to add on to this, Tee Chian?
No, I think what you say there is spot on. No, I think you're right. We are like that, and I think I always tell you, you're the legend of industrial design in Malaysia, but you always say that you're not.
No, I'm not. Okay, I'm not. I'm doing different things now. I'm transforming students to become a good industrial designer. Do we have any questions coming in, by the way? Yeah. Oh, by the way, Tee Chian, I also know that you are quite busy during the COVID-19 time. Maybe you can share quickly, what do you actually do as an industrial designer during that time?
So that's good. That's a good question. I think one of the things that we really did during that time is that, for us, during the COVID time is probably, I mean, you can go to our Facebook page and read about it, but during the COVID time is probably one of the times that you can really say that, I'm going to use my design skills, I'm going to make something, I'm going to make an impact in the world. And we actually did some small mini projects, because we were in lockdown here in Malaysia. We are just getting starting to come out of lockdown, but we used that time at home to sort of prototype, think of things that would impact people. We created a face shield, not created a face shield, but we decided to do a face shield production from our homes, and we actually provided that to the frontliners. Then we did certain prototypes of different things that we thought were cool, and that could help the frontliner. But project wise, I think the COVID did happen, and it is happening right now. But we were lucky enough that we still had projects, because I think in design, things will still continue moving. You can't just say that, all right, it's a really bad time in the economy right now. I can't just say like, oh no, I'm going to stop all my R&D work. And, by the time when economy picks up, we are way too far behind. So I think that's something that's quite fortunate. People are still interested at that time to, to come to us for design services, and, to try and develop and design new things.
Okay, I think we have a questions coming in. Okay, Mr. Robert Chua, The question is, how long do industrial designers usually take to complete a project, like the packing of a box or a building? Do they have a long holiday when they finish a big project or continue to work?
That's a really good one, man. I've got my team here at Expedio listening on to this, so I think they're going to probably kill me. So I'm going to probably take the second part of that question first. Do they have a long holiday after they finish a big project? You know what? The truth is, I hope we did. I really wish we could, but sometimes you don't have that flexibility, and projects do come in, and things like that. So if there's another project that goes on, we take a short. We don't have a long holiday. We'll probably just take a day or two break. Just recuperate, and then we're at it again. And so back to that first part of the question: how long does it take for a project all the way from start to finish? I guess that's what the question is about, right, Ika?
Yes. How long do industrial designers usually take to complete the projects? Yeah.
So I think the thing is that if you ask me, realistically, I would tell you it go anywhere from 6 months to almost a year and a half to 2 years. That's what this sort of timeline is what we're talking about, from creating an idea all the way to mass manufacturing. Of course, along the way, I always say, along the way, you're going to get some prototypes, you're going to get some things to show people, you're going to get some things that you can test out there. But really, to mass manufacturing, when you reach production and everything, that's not an easy task. That takes a really long time, and it's very common to go about a year to a year and a half.
All right. Okay. I myself have a questions to ask you actually. Now, I kind of like going to split the design process. Okay. Now you have ideation part, and then you kind of have design and development, and then you have the prototyping. Okay. So I personally like the ideation part. That's where when you describe that your client came to you with a piece of paper, and then you actually go and talk to them, and then you help your client to change an intangible idea into a tangible side. And that is the part that I actually really enjoy doing. So maybe you can share what is the part that you like doing in this process.
I think us as designer, I think I would echo what you just said. We really like that problem solving part. I think that's in nature with designers and people in our field. It's about having an idea. So it's sometimes it's not just solving an idea or creating or bringing the idea to something tangible. Sometimes it could be just very simple problems. Like for us, the thing that I enjoy most is, actually, it sounds crazy, but sometimes I do really enjoy the problems that we face all the time. Like you saw the fire rig just now. I can tell you, man, I built four of it, and every single time we hit a problem at the building site. And it's weird, but solving it there on site is probably one of the joys that I get, and it's the same with design. So when we get a problem that we can't solve, and just having that ability, and just cracking that problem, that gives me the most joy, and that's the part that I enjoy the most. But of course, then there's that real world, and there's that real thing where when it goes to production, you got to do the paperwork. So that part is very important. And going to production, going into tooling, injection molding, and all this, those are all very important parts. But I really enjoy the problem solving part, just like what you said.
Yeah, fantastic. I mean, sometimes I tell my students that I get high from actually solving problem. Probably they will not understand it.
You're crazy, right?
Yeah, crazy. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I think this is something very important. You have to have this lightness or the passion to actually solve a problem, and you kind of like being drive to it. Yeah, this is maybe this is one of the trait that good industrial designers should have, right? Beside some good sketching and things like that. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Another thing that I want to ask you there is thinking skill an important thing? Obviously, it's thinking skill, right? It's how much thinking skill is involved as an industrial designer compared to the hand skill. Okay.
I think that to answer that, I think that I would put the thinking skill. It is critical thinking and design thinking, and the way that we shape our thoughts is very important. But unfortunately, I mean, as I say, we've been around for 10 years, and I've seen people grow, and people, just designers growing in the company. That unfortunately really comes with experience and that sort of time, that to sharpen that skill of that thinking skill, that's really important. But you can't just, say, you get out of uni and then you have that sort of, that sort of skill to architect a product, or, to think of how a product comes about. But the core skills like sketching and all these are really the core of an industrial designer. If you can't, I won't say, okay, so I would put it that you don't need to be a great sketcher. But I think this is taught in schools as well. You've got to be a good communicator. Whether that communication comes from speaking, that communication comes from sketching, it's possible that you can do whatever medium you want, but you have to communicate your design, because if you can't communicate your design to your team, to your customers, basically the design is nothing. I think that's a very interesting question coming from Ku as well. I think if you can see.
Yeah, okay, there's a question. Teacher, we're going to get this classic question we discussed about.
I know you like this one, Kika.
Yeah.
I know you like this one.
So what is the difference between product design and industrial design? Okay,
I'm going to let you pick
try?
that, because you gave me that answer that day.
Oh, no, okay. Okay, now, strictly speaking, okay, I used to call myself product design because I create products. But lately, right, I want to call myself an industrial designer because I want to separate myself from the so-called generic product design term that they use outside, because they use product design to describe interface designer as well. So if you apply for interface designers, they are actually looking for product design. So you kind of like get a bit confusing, So I think I want to stick back to industrial design because we are different. Maybe you can emphasize a little bit, why are we different from product design?
No, I think you're right. I mean, like you're exactly right. So product design is more general. Nowadays UI UX can be considered product design, but I think the difference is industrial designer. If you ask me, it's the human factor. So it's the whole ethnography, the whole ergonomics and things that's not considered so much in product design.
Yeah, I think the other thing that I want to add on top of the ergonomics is actually aesthetic. We are kind of like the one that looks into aesthetic as well and make aesthetic work for the manufacturing, you see?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, there's another question from TechYard Cole. What is your design philosophy that you hold dearest in the industrial design fields till today?
So for me, I think for me in design philosophy wise for me, I think I don't hold so much. I think for me personally, because I mean, all designers have their own sort of philosophy and ego and sort of ways. But I think that the design philosophy that I hold dearest to me is that for me, change is always inevitable. So I actually change my design philosophies according to time. I'm sure if those who are deep or who have studied industrial design know that, what we learn in design history. So, I mean, we can quote the Bauhaus today, we can quote Art Nouveau today, and all these very technical terms. But the truth is, we're in a different century and a different time. So the design philosophies change. I think a lot of people also like to quote design philosophies of maybe, let's say, Dieter Rams. And, for me, I respect his philosophies, but for me, I think my design philosophy changes over time, and I don't hold so much to one philosophy all this while.
Okay. We have another questions coming in from Kamal Hassan. Is there a line to balance when designing a product between being attractive or to be utilitarian?
This is quite a tough one. I think for us, like just now as I started, I don't know if I say, designers or industrial designers we have no choice. We have that artistic element in us. So there's always that importance of designing a product to be attractive. I think that is unavoidable in what we do. I can't bring myself, I can't bring myself to design something that's ugly. So, attractiveness and that is really, really part of it. And I think that's about balancing that two elements and how you want to take just want to make something that's, too crazy, too hard to produce and everything. And, I think these are something that we as designers will have to balance it really, really well. But for me, I think you can't put more importance on one than the other, but definitely I can't design something that's ugly.
Okay, we have another one from Yun Ni. Does industrial design require you to know everything from technology to engineering, etc. in detail?
Again, yes and no to a question like that. If you ask me, it would be very fortunate if you are in a design company or design studio, something like what we are, where we have a mixture of designers and engineers and also programmers and tech guys. So that's where you might not need to know everything, but you can bounce idea with everyone, and you can share that sort of knowledge. But the truth is also, I think as designers, if you want to be a really polished designer nowadays, it's also not possible that you just say like, oh no, I'm just very good at sketching or very good at pottery. I mean, that's really good if you are probably in arts and things like that, and in the artistic sense. To be a really good industrial designer, I think you have to know a lot about technology. You gotta always be reading up about tech. You gotta be always reading up about sensors, what's things moving, how trends are moving. So I think that you probably don't need to know everything if you're in probably a very good mix of team like what we have here. But definitely it is very, very important skill to have all this knowledge if you can.
So you're kind of like saying that we are kind of like a generalist.
Yes, so, in some ways we are,
not deep learners.
Yep. In some ways we are.
Okay. Okay. Another one from Takako Shikiya. Has the process of industrial design changed over the time you work? What do you think will be important for industrial design in near future?
I think this question is a bit highlighted in my slides just now. So I think the process in industrial design definitely has changed over the years. I think when I first started off about 18 years ago in industrial design, I think we were very much looking at aesthetics, and we were actually looking much on how good the product looks, styling and things like that. But I think that what design or industrial design is moving in the future is very much, it's very, very open, and it's very, very different. We're looking at human impact. We're looking at, how design brings difference to even, I think one popular thing today is design thinking, right? And how design thinking is, bringing changes to businesses. It's not even a product, it's a business, So I think that, design in the future will evolve, and it will be a very important part, just like the big brands that you see today, whether be it from Facebook, Google, and, we can generalize design in a very big umbrella, but I guess that industrial designers in that field would play a very important role in the human factor and the human aspect of community. And I think that's how I'll answer that question.
Okay, kind of like myself have this philosophy of every design should be able to sell. So whatever you design, you have to be able to sell it, and the process sometimes also depends on the customers. Sometimes the customer really wants something like that. You have to do something like that, or sometimes they want it to have an environmental caringness and things like that. So you have to think about things like that as well. So it kind of like depends on what the customer really looking into it also, right? Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, we have another questions coming in. Siu Hon T. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrongly. Can you share some of your experience on introducing new or creative idea to commercial world, especially when they are satisfied with current established environment?
Okay. I think that I think what you're asking is, what if you have a very new or some creative idea that you want to introduce with people who are very comfortable with what they have? I think that's what she means. I think as we all know, like I showed the first slide of an Apple iPhone, and I think Steve Jobs probably did that, right? We were satisfied with the environment or what we were using, what we thought a handphone could be back then. And when he introduced that first iPhone to us, many people didn't even know that they need it or they want it. But that's sort of the power, or that power that I have to give respect to Steve Jobs for, being such a visionary, and for bringing that product and totally changing the whole smartphone, or in that sense the handphone industry. So yes, you might be faced with some resistance, but I think that with good foresight, but which does not happen to everybody. I mean, it's a skill that is not something that's born with everybody. But yes, with good foresight and trying to predict what people want, that's something that designers can do.
All right. Okay. All right. There's another one from Tan Marilyn. If I'm interested in design, but I don't know how much about it, what can I do and where do I start? Any suggestions?
You can always look for Ikang and go to APU. I think the other thing with nowadays is that there are a lot of courses online about design, and there are a lot of there are a lot more. It's very different from last time. Last time, if you had interest in design, you probably have to go and find someone to apprentice under someone or something. But right now, there are a lot of really so much content and so much avenue. I mean, design is wide. You can dabble in maybe woodworking, some things to start off with. You can dabble in illustration, and then after that, when you're more fixed and you really this path is what you choose, then you enroll in a university or a course like with APU or anyone, and you start taking that really seriously as a choice of what you want to do as your career.
Okay, another one coming from Chia Shun Tik. Is the life of an industrial designer hard? Do you need to follow any rules, or can you be totally free and creative in industrial design?
Wow, this is a hard one. Ikang, how should I answer this? Is the life of an industrial designer hard? You should ask Ikang, then he'll probably be able to tell you.
If you like something, right, there's nothing is hard, for me. I mean, if you like to do something, that's not hard for me at all. Yeah. Do you need to follow any rules, or you can be totally free? Well, there are rules for manufacturing that you need to follow. There are rules for marketing that you need to follow, the packaging that you need to follow. So yeah, I mean, we have to follow constraint. But to me, creativity comes from able to navigate all these constraints. That's where I find very challenging. Give me constraint, I solve the problem for you.
That's why you are someone who's very experienced, and that answer will be very correct. There are constraints. I mean, I was just about to end that. There are a lot of constraints in design. You're not as free, but I think your answer is great. That you say that's how, as a designer, for you to be able to maneuver through all these constraints, because we have to be true. We have to be realistic. Designing is not just I can do whatever I want. You have a lot of manufacturing things, a lot of marketing things to consider, and that's how you try to move around. And to try to get to the end point.
Yeah. Okay. Another one from Zhu Tan. How can the IT field blend with the design field? When you say IT field,
I think IT field there's I don't know. So it depends on what he means by the IT field, but I think there are a lot of. I mean, if I were to say the IT, I think there are a lot of examples of the IT field blending with the design field nowadays. I think there's things like Internet of Things, things like how bringing very traditional IT products, let's say into cloud and to web, into app and everything. I think that has been very much shown in today.
Yeah, I guess when you go into design services, that's where the IT people can actually work together with us. I mean, I'm talking about software designer. I mean, one of my last job, right, is actually working for a dentist. And the dentist is the one that came up with the idea of how they're going to use the software to actually operate on their patients. So I cannot do the software side, but I'm the one who actually have to sit down and understand how do you actually do something. And then I put all these constraints together and I communicate it with the software guy. And then the software guy will tell me and say, oh no, you can't do this, you can only do this. Then I have to go back to the dentist and say, you can only do this, can you change a little bit, and things like that. So I guess there's a lot of things that we can do with software designers. Yeah. So
Definitely.
do come and talk to us. We don't really know when we can only know when we get in there, and then we can see what is actually needed. Yeah. Any more questions from okay, one more from Chia Shun Tik. Can you be yourself, or are you bound to someone else's idea?
For me, I think that like my team, my designers, I always try to mold them in that sense. And I think I've worked with throughout all my life, from when I started, or I worked with a lot of industrial designers, and I think it's very important for industrial designers to have that character, that ego, that part of being yourself. I think that has to be there. If not, if you're just, in that sense, if I were to say, if you're just a follower, that won't make you a good designer. You really have to have certain things that you believe in, certain things that you think that, this is the way I want to do it. And that part of the ego, I think, is very, very important in a designer. So if you ask me, do you have to be yourself? Yes, I think you do. But are you bounded by someone else's idea? I think that when you come to industry and when you come to reality and things like that, unfortunately, you might be, because, you know, if let's say if you have a prospect and they have a very strong, you know, they have a very strong way they feel about a certain idea, and, you know, they engage you or they commission you for the work. Unfortunately, I have to say, you know, they might have the right to the idea that they're trying to push, even though you might think of it in a different way. But you know, definitely being yourself is so important, being a designer, because you got to have that designer ego.
Yeah, and then also industrial designer always work in a team situation, and we are not working alone. We are working with different types of professional people together. And at the end of the day, the team objective is the most important thing that we build towards it. And I think a good designer sometimes will have to learn when to actually let go the ego and then accept others people's and still contribute a good idea. You know, build ideas on ideas. Yeah. So that is a very important thing when you work in a team situation, you see. Okay. All right. I guess we can accommodate one more. Do we have one more questions? Yes, Ziu Tan. Okay. Are there any example when the technology required by the design is not mature yet? If yes, how to deal with it?
For this question, I think that there will always be design and ideas that are far beyond reach of what the environment or what today can bring in terms of technology. And for me, I think how do you deal with it is about the goal of the design project or the brief of the design project. An example, I mean, like now, you know, drone delivery is something that's going to happen maybe not even the next 3 years, if you ask me, maybe 5-10 years. But that doesn't stop us from trying to get, you know, that technology, starting to get that technology to work today. That doesn't stop us from trying. But I guess the goal would be, you know, even if we got it to work today, maybe the technology is not mature enough, and, you know, goal now could be slightly different. When I say the goal, it could be like, you know, maybe the goal now is to do more test trials, R&D runs. You know, the goal now is not to commercialize yet, but maybe in the next 3 years, it could be a goal to commercialize and things like that. But yeah, so for me, I think that there are many instances where technology is beyond reach, but I would actually change that goal. You know, so if someone came to me and say like, I really want to do this, I'll tell them, the technology does not exist today, but, you know, what if you could, you know, change that goal or what you're trying to do.
All right. I believe that there's still one more question coming in from Karamin Zin. In your opinion, what is the most difficult part of being an industrial designer?
Most difficult part? Maybe I'll let you answer that first, Ikang.
It's tough. I never really look into what is the most difficult part, because I take my job quite seriously and I enjoy it, and I'm still having fun doing it. But I don't really know what is the most difficult part. Okay, maybe the most difficult.
There must be some very difficult part.
What is the most difficult part? I know. I don't have, actually. I cannot think of any. Do you have any to share?
I think for me, I think would be that it's not so easy seeing our ideas actually materialize. You know, it's you know, or seeing our works materialize. As much as, you know, I want every single concept or, you know, work that comes out of our hand to really hit the market and everything. I think for me, that's probably the hardest part. It's not that the project is not successful. I think that, you know, it's possible that we have done our best to make the project successful. But I think for me the thing that is hard is always to see that project, you know, we've completed it, but, you know, maybe marketing wise, maybe budget wise and everything, it doesn't really take off as we want it to be. And I think that's probably, you know, for me, that's the hardest part of being an industrial designer.
Yeah, I mean, my take will be why I say that there's no difficult part, because to me everything is the same. Everything you still need to solve problems. You know, whenever you face something, you still have to solve problems. So I don't go and compare which problem is more difficult than the other one. It's
Yep.
all problems. Okay, if you take our industrial designer's job, solving problems will be kind of like your core area that you want to go in. You have to like solving problems. Okay. All right. We kind of like going to wrap up now. Okay.
All right.
So thank you very much. Okay, I really learned a lot of
Thank you
things from
for the
you.
wonderful night.
Yeah.
Thank you for having us.
And also thank you for the team that is actually supporting to make this webinar successful. Mr. Edwin, Miss Christine, Mr. Jerry. Okay, thank you very much for your support to make this thing move smoothly. Okay.
Thank you everyone for participating as well.
Yes, thank you for the questions. Amazing, your amazing questions coming in from the audience. All right.
All right.
Oh,
have a good night, Ikang. So I'll see you again. And you know,
yes, very soon.
Again. All
Yeah,
right.
very soon we will catch up. Yeah. Have a good night then. Before we actually go away tonight, I'm going to quickly bring your attention to the next up and coming ecosystem. The webinar is called the Ecosystem for the Creative Industries. It is this coming Sunday, 4 to 5. So for those of you who wanted to know a little bit more about the creative industry, how all these things actually work together, please do join us this coming Sunday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, so looking forward for your registration. And that's a wrap from me. Have a good night. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.